After 2 failed marriages, Crystal Pifer met and fell in love with an older man named Thomas. Despite not being her usual type, Thomas had his own business and owned his own home, so he appeared to be a stable and grounded individual, qualities that appealed to Crystal. But their relationship was marred by frequent arguments, and Thomas even resorted to hitting Crystal on one occasion. Despite this, Crystal persisted in the relationship, holding on to hope that Thomas would change. One fateful night, during an argument on Thomas's boat on the Halifax River, Crystal jumped overboard to get away from Thomas. So he called 911, but despite a night-long search, Crystal remained missing. The following morning, her body was discovered by a fisherman. But what led to her demise? Did she drown, or was she the victim of foul play at the hands of Thomas? Let's get into it. Crystal Carolia Guest was born on a chilly December day in 1986 in Barnstable, Massachusetts. She and her mother eventually moved to the south, settling in Central Florida, where Crystal spent the majority of her life. Having grown up in the vicinity of Daytona Beach, Crystal had developed a deep love for the water. Over the years, her family owned boats and jet skis, so she always wanted to swim and go out on the water. At Smyrna Beach High School, Crystal was not just a face in the crowd. She was a fairly popular student who easily connected with her peers. After high school, she found herself in the role of an office manager at Dominic's Auto in Holly Hill. In the early 2000s, love knocked on Crystal's door, and she answered with open arms. She fell head over heels in love and ended up getting married. In June of 2005, the couple welcomed a healthy baby boy into their lives. However, just 4 months after the joyous arrival of their son, tragedy struck. A heartbreaking accident unfolded when a piece of furniture toppled over, landing on the infant and inflicting devastating injuries. The child endured mid-facial trauma, along with a fractured jaw and palate. He was rushed to hospital and underwent emergency surgery. Fortunately, after enduring a tense 16-day hospital stay, he was finally discharged. Yet, due to the severity of the injuries, the road to recovery would require ongoing medical treatments in the future. Despite the immense challenges they faced after their son's tragic accident, Crystal and her first husband clung to each other, finding strength in their love to overcome the heart-wrenching ordeal. However, life's twists continued, and in 2009, just 4 years later, their once harmonious marriage unraveled, leading to a painful divorce. Crystal, resilient and hopeful, opened her heart to love once again and got married a second time. Unfortunately, fate had a different plan. The second marriage, far from being an improvement, turned out to be even more challenging. In December 2012, Crystal took the difficult step of filing for the dissolution of her second marriage. The legal process concluded in March 2013, marking the end of another chapter in her tumultuous romantic journey. But Crystal's troubles with her ex-husband didn't end there, because 16 months later, in a desperate move for safety and peace, she found herself filing for a protective order against him. In her 20s, having already weathered the storms of 2 divorces, Crystal became understandably cautious about venturing into another relationship. However, a change came when she crossed paths with Thomas Prins, a 42-year-old tree-trimming business owner hailing from Hoboken, New Jersey. Despite the significant 14-year age gap, and despite not fitting the conventional standards of attractiveness, Crystal found herself drawn to Thomas. As the owner of his own business, he had established a stable life and had his own house. So it appeared as though he possessed the qualities of an honest, hard-working, trustworthy man, and these aspects of his character seemed to overshadow any superficial judgments based on looks. Crystal found herself drawn to the substance beneath the surface, recognizing in Thomas a potential for a different kind of connection, one grounded in stability and shared values. Surprisingly, her family, who had witnessed her tumultuous romantic history, accepted Thomas with open arms, despite the considerable age difference. They held on to the hope that he might just be the man who would bring stability and happiness back into Crystal's life. Her feelings for Thomas blossomed quite quickly, and it didn't take long before she moved into Thomas's home in Daytona Beach. In the initial stages, like many relationships, The couple were happy together and were excited about the future. However, after just 7 months of being together, Thomas's true colors started to show. Police records and accounts from neighbors reveal a pattern of frequent and loud arguments that drew the attention of those around them. The situation escalated to the point where the Daytona Beach police had to intervene, sending officers to their home at least a dozen times for domestic disturbance calls. One fateful night, Crystal's mother received a frantic call from her daughter, pleading for help as Thomas had beaten her. Alarmed and worried, Crystal's dad, mother, and younger brother Freddie rushed to her side. Witnessing Crystal's injured face and the blood dripping down the side of her face, Freddie couldn't contain his anger. Fueled by a protective instinct, he tackled Thomas to the ground and started punching him. In a stern warning, Freddie made it clear that any future harm to his sister would result in even harsher consequences. Despite the brutal nature of the incident, Crystal's family initially believed it to be a one-time occurrence, thinking that Thomas wouldn't dare to harm Crystal again. Unfortunately, they were wrong. They had no idea just how dangerous Thomas was and what he was capable of when he lost his temper. Unbeknownst to the family, Thomas harbored a dark and troubling past marked by a substantial criminal history. He had faced at least 8 arrests on charges that included domestic violence and child abuse dating as far back as 2006. Whether or not Crystal was aware of his criminal history, no one truly knows. However, Crystal decided to keep the abuse she suffered a secret, pretending that all was well in her relationship. 8 months later, on the evening of August 11, 2015, Thomas had planned to take Crystal out for dinner and a boat ride on the Halifax River. Interestingly, he had purchased the boat from Crystal's ex-husband, despite being aware of its mechanical issues. At around 7 p.m., they set off on the boat, enjoying the serene waters and sharing a few drinks. The evening began on a positive note, with the couple just enjoying each other's company and looking forward to a fun night out together. But what was meant to be a peaceful and pleasant evening took a sharp turn when the boat's engine abruptly shut down, reportedly sparking the onset of an argument between the couple. After overcoming the mechanical glitch, Thomas managed to get the boat running again, and they proceeded to a nearby restaurant for dinner. Despite the earlier hiccup, they pressed on, attempting to salvage the evening and enjoy a meal together. Once they got to the restaurant, the mood became friendlier, and the two eventually became affectionate towards each other. But as the evening unfolded, their affectionate behavior escalated to the point of annoyance for other patrons. Due to their disruptive behavior, the restaurant's management had to intervene, asking Thomas and Crystal to leave. Beyond their public displays of affection, the couple's behavior raised eyebrows among fellow patrons at the restaurant. A discerning onlooker, sensing that something was amiss and genuinely concerned for Crystal's safety, took the initiative to record the couple as they got onto the boat again. Thomas started the boat's engine, and the two slowly drifted off into the darkness. But their journey was short-lived, as just a few minutes later, the boat's engine overheated and shut off once again. The familiar strains of arguments resurfaced, echoing through the night, as the mechanical issues of the boat added to the tension between the couple. Frustrated by the intensifying argument, Crystal reached a breaking point and wanted to get away from Thomas, so she jumped off the boat. She spotted a sailboat, so she swam over to it and climbed into it seeking refuge. On this sailboat was James Wagner and his mentally handicapped daughter. Crystal explained to James that her boyfriend had beaten her. In a compassionate response, James offered to take her to shore to get her to safety, so Crystal and James got into his dinghy, but as James rowed away, Thomas, fueled by anger, started to argue with James, adding further tension to the already tense situation. Knowing that the dinghy could only support the weight of 2 people, James had to make the difficult choice of leaving his daughter behind in the sailboat while he took Crystal to safety. However, Crystal, concerned for the safety of James's daughter, told him that Thomas might hurt or kill his daughter if he left her alone on the sailboat. Overwhelmed by this worry, Crystal jumped back into the water and swam back to Thomas's boat. Fearing for Crystal's safety, James called 911, recognizing the urgent need for intervention in the volatile situation.
Hi, this is 911. You have an emergency?
Okay, I'm on a sailboat out off of South Daytona, and a boat just floated by me, and a girl jumped out of it and swam over and called my ding and said people been beating on her.
Did she look hurt?
She told me they were beating her in the face and stuff. I don't know. I can't see her. It's dark down there. Well, look, I got a mentally handicapped daughter on board here with me.
Who is this guy to her?
She says it's her boyfriend.
He's not following you, is he?
No, he's just hanging out off the boat here saying, come on, come on.
Okay.
Just hold on. She just jumped in the water. Are you going back to his boat? Nobody's going to hurt anybody. Okay. Coming back over to the boat because she's afraid he'll hurt my daughter.
Is that her screaming?
Yeah, she's screaming at him. They're drifting north.
Okay.
He said he kept punching her in the head and that he hurt her hand. She's back at the boat.
Is she back on the boat or?
Yep, she's back on the boat and they got all their lights out now.
Can you hear them yelling?
No, now they're all of a sudden they're being really quiet.
Roughly 45 minutes later, a second 911 call was made. This time it was Thomas who made the call.
911, where's your emergency?
Hey, me and my fiance got in a little bit of an argument, and she took the keys to my boat and jumped off the boat, and I just want to make sure she's okay.
You don't see her in the water?
I don't see her in the water. I'll think she's one for sure. She's not that good of a swimmer. I keep on jumping in the water to see if I can find her, and I can't find her anywhere.
Crystal!
Is she responding to you?
No.
Okay. You don't see her on the shore, though?
No. She took the boat. She said, I see you, and she jumped in the water and swam off, and I'm just praying that she's okay.
How long ago did this happen?
Not even 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 minutes ago.
Crystal!
Early the next morning, at around 7 a.m., a local fisherman at the Seven Seas Marina and Boatyard in Port Orange made a horrifying discovery and immediately called 911.
911, where's the emergency?
There's a body floating out off of a dock here. It just came up on it when we were fishing.
So definitely a person, they're face down?
Oh, definitely. He's definitely underwater. I see his back and his jeans. He's got no shirt on. It looks like he's got bruises on his shoulders and stuff. Pretty horrible. Morning fishing and you come up on a body floating.
The fisherman did see a dead body, but it wasn't a man's body. It was Crystal Pifer, and she had been beaten and strangled to death. After he was briefed on the argument between Thomas and Crystal the previous night and the subsequent 911 calls, Detective Wallace conducted an examination of the body. His observations revealed significant evidence, including heavy bruising on the back, abrasions, contusions, and lacerations. It became evident to Detective Wallace that this was not a simple drowning. Foul play was clearly involved. With these disturbing findings, Thomas Prins was identified as the main suspect and was called in for questioning. During the interrogation, detectives asked Thomas to explain what happened on the boat with Crystal. He stated that Crystal became angry due to the boat's mechanical issues. According to Thomas, she was so furious that she took the boat keys out of the ignition and jumped into the river. After that, he lost sight of her. The detectives observed scratch marks on Thomas's body and noticed that his knuckles were swollen. Although Thomas denied engaging in a physical altercation with Crystal on the boat, he did admit that they had sex 3 times that night. Detectives didn't have enough evidence at that point to arrest Thomas, so he was free to leave. Once the autopsy was completed, the results unveiled a grim reality. Crystal's body bore more than 24 cuts and bruises, a haunting record of the violence she endured right before her death. These injuries included a ligature mark around her neck, indicative of strangulation. Bruises were scattered across her face, head, arms, legs, and torso, with cuts found on her lips, inside her mouth, hands, and back. A medical examiner wrote in the autopsy report that the bruising pattern strongly suggested that Crystal had been involved in a physical altercation with another person before her death, and it was the ligature mark on her neck that proved fatal. The medical examiner concluded that Crystal was already dead before her body was thrown into the water. Importantly, there was no evidence to support the claim that she drowned. After 2 months of investigation, they finally had enough evidence to arrest Thomas, and he was charged with first-degree murder. 8 months later, the case went to trial. Thomas tried to claim that Crystal had died by drowning, but the evidence was stacked against him. The medical examiner testified that there was no sign of water in Crystal's lungs or her stomach. The prosecution's case presented compelling evidence during the trial. Photographic evidence showcased injuries sustained by both Crystal and Thomas, suggesting that there was a physical altercation. Additionally, the examination of certain clothing and towels revealed traces of blood, further implicating Thomas. Notably, the boat parked in Thomas's backyard became a key piece of physical evidence, bearing not only bloodstains but also Crystal's hair. These tangible elements contributed to building a strong case against Thomas, shedding light on the violent events that transpired on that fateful night. The prosecution presented a crucial witness in the form of Crystal's ex-husband, who had sold the boat to Thomas. His intimate knowledge of the boat provided valuable insights that contradicted Thomas's narrative, making it seem unlikely, if not impossible. During the trial, Crystal's ex-husband explained to the jury that the sounds captured in the background of the 911 call were inconsistent with Thomas's account. During the call, Thomas informed the 911 operator that Crystal had taken the keys and jumped off the boat. However, the ex-husband pointed out that in the background, one could hear Thomas attempting to start the boat, a task impossible without the keys. This contradiction added weight to the prosecution's argument, undermining Thomas's version of events and strengthening the case against him. The trial, spanning 3 days, reached its conclusion. After a few hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict. Thomas Prins was found guilty of first-degree murder. In a moment of shock, Thomas collapsed shortly after the verdict was announced. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In remembrance of Crystal Pifer, we honor the light she brought into the lives of those around her. Despite facing many dark and challenging times during her life, her unwavering positivity and belief in brighter days ahead stood as a testament to her resilient spirit. A highlight in her life was witnessing her son, Dominic, celebrate his 10th birthday, a moment that brought her immeasurable joy and a testament to the love and happiness she found in motherhood. Crystal's joy was intricately woven into moments spent watching Dominic play baseball or enjoying sunny days on the beach with him. Her warmth, love, and fierce protectiveness towards all her loved ones left an enduring impression on everyone who was fortunate enough to know her. As we reflect on Crystal's life, our hearts go out to her parents Lori and Fred, her brother Freddie, her son Dominic, and all her loved ones. May you all find happiness in the treasured memories of Crystal, a woman who, despite challenges, exuded optimism and resilience, creating a lasting impact that goes beyond the sorrowful events of her untimely departure. We send our deepest and most heartfelt condolences to you all. May God's peace fill your hearts and minds, and may Crystal's soul rest in eternal peace.